What's up, everyone? So, as you can see here, got some fried rice and fried chicken right here. My favorite Thai place lately these days, their roast Thai. Also got the Thai iced tea here as well. And yeah, let's get into it. Now, actually, I just heard on the news recently, the world really wants to burn, right? Recently, there was another police shooting in Wisconsin, I believe. I forgot his name. Please forgive me. I can't remember at the top of my head right now, but I believe this man was shot in the back from policemen while his kids were actually in the car at the same time. Now, I believe he was actually trying to break up a fight between these two women on the street, and unfortunately, he should have been kind of more considerate. He was not listening to the police at the time and had his back turned, and the police at that time had the guns pointed at him as well. And unfortunately, he got shot in the back, and I think he's in critical condition as of this moment. Now, as soon as we thought things were slowly coming back, of course, the injustice recently has happened, and now this stacks up again. And then literally the world is burning right now in the United States, at least, right? We have the wildfires going on, and then now we have this reoccurrence that we see over and over again, police brutality on specifically people of African American background. It's quite unfortunate, and I feel like becoming a policeman, I think it's too easy. They're not doing enough training. Yes, you can do the physical part of the training and stuff like that, but they're not considering the ethics, right? The ethics portion is very important. Right? While watching this video, it was very hard to watch. Saw that the policemen were not trained well at all. Instead of just shooting at him, letting him go into his car, they should have restrained him, and learning from the mistakes from previous policemen. I mean, there's a lot of cases where individuals cannot breathe, so you have to make sure he's restrained, and he make sure that he can be able to breathe. Now, I don't know why humanity in general makes these mistakes over and over again, and it seems like we're not progressing and moving forward. So those are just my closing thoughts right there. But let's get a bite to eat here first. I'm learning about this news right now. Kind of lost my appetite a little bit. I was actually looking forward to this food when it's coming, but I just heard the news recently, and it's quite disheartening to hear, at least. But damn, this fried rice is bomb. Let's get some of that chicken right here. See what I have? Okay, so here's my closing thoughts on the situation that recently happened in Wisconsin. So these policemen these days, they're not getting the right training. I feel like to become a policeman, it's fairly too easy. Now, definitely during these tough times, they need to train policemen on ethics, right? I believe a lot of companies within certain industries teach their employees ethics, right? The right thing to do in the right situations, and I feel like the police department is lacking in that department. So what the police should have done in this situation, they should not have let him go into his car, right? So now I'm kind of thinking in the view of the policeman. I'm trying to be try not to be biased here a little bit. So the policeman, he was not doing his job correctly. He should have restrained him first on his back, or however they should restrain him correctly. Make sure he's able to breathe, and he's not put into a life-threatening situation. Now, the mistake the policeman made was letting the man go into his car. Now, the policeman, I'm trying to think in the viewpoint of the policeman at this point. They should not have let him in his car. Maybe he could have a gun in his car. I don't know, right? But if they did the job correctly, restraining him in the first place, it wouldn't have escalated to that situation. So, those are just my own thoughts on this recent travesty that happened recently. So, moving on to a brighter topic. Today we'll be talking about God of High School episode 7. Now, if you remember from the last episode, the North Chungcheong province is versus Seoul, Jin, and the whole squad right here. So first up is a promising match. What I thought it would be was Jin versus Na Yidong. Now Jin actually uses this technique, the pressure point technique, taught by Na Bongchim. And if you remember, he's one of the powerful 6 martial artists who are well renowned, I believe. And I believe they skipped this part where Na Bongchim is teaching him and took Jin under his wing as a student. And after the episode, I kind of read some comments. People always complain that, the anime series usually skip out parts from manhwa or manga particularly. And you gotta remember, the studio only paid for around 13 episodes, so I believe the director and the person behind the manhwa is directing this, and he cut out parts that I believe wouldn't be really pertinent to the story. Of course, some parts may be important here and there, but he's trying to get the main points across. So you cannot always please anyone. That's that. So Jin uses his pressure point technique, and unfortunately, he sabotages himself. Instead of making himself stronger, he presses on the pressure points that cause him to be paralyzed. And now this is an easy win for Na Yidong, and he comes out with the win. Now on the sidelines, I was cracking up when Jin sabotages himself and he loses as a result. Yumira and Daehui are just looking at each other in disgust. Now, the second match is Daehui versus Jin Kwang, and he's 38 years old and he's a high schooler at this time. Now, I know some people were kind of judging him, and I kind of judged him a little bit too. And he's a 30-year-old as a high schooler, and how is he able to participate in this tournament where it's full of high schoolers, right? That shouldn't be the case. A 30-year-old participating in this tournament just because he's enrolled in high school. But, people judging people on you don't know their circumstances, you should not be able to do that, right? So here we get a little backstory about Jin Kwang. So I believe he's a construction worker, and he's taking care of his younger brother. And he never went to high school, and he failed the exam multiple times. And there's naysayers, people like that who always look down upon people in these certain situations, right? You have no right to judge a book by its cover. You don't know the situation that person is in. Now, one of these girls who kind of looked down upon him, she actually is a really good kendo person who goes to these tournaments, and unfortunately, I think she gets to the finals, and then she loses against this opponent that she just can't seem to beat. And Jin Kwang, at the end of the match, appears before her saying, keep your head up high, and just the one thing that I always tell myself is to never give up. And he said that even though he failed the high school exam multiple times, he never gives up, and that kind of inspired her in a way as well. So at the construction site during his breaks, Jin Kwang actually is trying to study for the high school exam, and this high school girl comes out of the blue and offers to help him study for the upcoming exam. Now he's actually a official high schooler now, while he's participating in this tournament. So now, excuse me. Now we later learned that he can actually use Charyuk power as well. Kwang's Charyuk power is quite fitting for a construction worker. It's in the form of a big hammer, right? Okay, let's get some more tea here before we talk about the rest of the episode. Mm-hmm. So in this episode, besides the fights in the God of High School tournament, I felt these fights were more entertaining to watch, to say so the least. Now, if you remember from last episode, we thought that Commissioner Q was actually dead, and he was killed by the guy named Drake, who actually killed the Commissioner, right? But that's not the case at all. And Q is greatly pissed and wants to take revenge for Commissioner, the former announcer. And he's easily overpowering Drake. And just before Commissioner Q is about to defeat him, these two new individuals come. So they're, according to Drake, they're priests, Exley and Saturn, and they interrupt this battle. Now it's Drake is not in this battle. He's kind of out of commission for a bit. But these two priests are kind of giving Commissioner Q a little problem since it's 2v1. It's a little unfair. But coming to the rescue is Priest O, and he's the guy with the white hair. And usually in anime or manga, whatnot, characters with white hair are super strong. So we kind of, this episode flips back and forth. Now, going back, so actually no, Commissioner O is pitted up against the so-called priest, she's a priestess, and she has quite a foul mouth, which is really unbefitting of the title of a priestess, right? Now, eventually, these commissioners, they're super strong, and they easily overpower their enemies, and they have no choice but to flee. Now, going back to the God of High School tournament, here we're in the final match between these two provinces. Now, the girl that I mentioned before, her name is actually Zhang Zhangmi, and she's a kendo user, right, I believe, and now she's against Yumira. So this was like an interesting match, right? It's a two sword styles going head to head. Now, Mira actually, she's getting a run for money by this other girl, but Mira is a little more talented, and this girl actually has the power of Charyuk as well. Pretty much her Charyuk is like a big sword, right, in the manifestation of a light, I believe, of some sort. And Ymira is more talented when it comes to sword technique and stuff like that. So she actually comes out and pulls out with the win. So the Seoul province, they win 2-1 best of 3 matches, right? So of course, our squad can't lose that easily yet. But now we figure that Park Mu-jin smells something a little fishy. It should not be, the information that should not be disclosed of where the commissioners live is kept under secret, right? Should be kept under wraps. He kind of sniffs out that there's a traitor among us. Of course, how would they know that information? So, Park Mu-jin is trying to figure out the mole in their organization. Now, toward the end of the episode, we have the South Gyeongsang versus the North Jeolla province. Now, I recognize after watching this episode that one of the main characters, his name is Jaego Take, and I'm sure he's going to play a really good, prominent role later in the future. And his same voice actor as Overhaul from My Hero Academia, and he has a very distinct, deep voice, and his voice definitely fits perfectly well for the character of a villain. And he's pitted off against this pretty boy who is an heir to a company, and he easily defeats him like within the couple first seconds. Now, his Charyuk is like a great white shark, I believe, and it's in the physical manifestation of his Charyuk, and he chomps his enemies into pieces. Now, pretty much the match is over, right? And it's quite gruesome and hard to watch, to say so the least. The audience is having a hard time as well. He's bleeding profusely, and before anyone can stop him, this girl, I believe from his team, jumps in, but she's easily defeated as well. Now, we switch over back to Mira talking to Jin, saying, "You better not step into the ring and interfere with this fight. You can't proceed if you get another penalty of some sort. But Jin actually says, "What about him?" as he points to the stands. Now we find that Daehui actually just jumps in the ring and tries to interfere. Now the commissioner stands in between them saying, "Stop this, no more interference, or otherwise there will be other penalties inflicted upon your teams or whatnot." And actually the guy that Park Tae-jik was, Jago Tak was up against, his name is Jeon Jukuk. I forgot, I can't pronounce his name. But pretty much he still has some life left in him, and he uses some lightning bolt technique on Jago Tak, but this guy is super strong. It has no effect on him, and he takes this as a challenge. You're still willing to participate in this fight. So unfortunately, Jeon Jukuk, or I can't pronounce the name, meets a horrible end as Jago Tak finishes him off with his Charyuk ability. Now, there's a lot of more opponents, right? Luckily, the Seoul province, the first round, they didn't face too strong of an opponent. We're super lucky. And, Jin cannot be that underwhelming, right? He didn't even fight. He sabotaged himself by using that pressure point technique. Now, he cannot do that later on in the matches to come when it really counts. Right, against Jago Tak, that team is super dangerous, and he could pretty much be a one-man army. Now, for our Seoul squad right here, we're at like a big disadvantage. Right, for the stronger teams, they're using their Charyuk abilities at the fullest capability. Now, our Seoul squad, I believe Jin definitely has some Charyuk ability. Remember, he ate that fruit from Park Min-jin. He was able to survive. He's not aware that he has some latent power within him, and he hasn't awakened to them yet. Now, Mira and Daehui are quite strong as well, but against Jago Tak and that opponents to come who use their Charyuk ability, the chances of winning are looking slim to none, at least in my opinion. So hopefully in the future we can have. I'm sure they'll have a Charyuk ability later down the line. They have to, otherwise they can't win. So maybe hopefully Park Min-jin can pull some strings, and Mira and Daehui can get their hands on some Charyuk power, and Jin can go through some training hopefully and awaken to his abilities as well. So yeah, that's it for today's Mukbang. Thank you for watching.